presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please remain standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Counsel Milanazzo.
Here.
Counsel Rourke.
Here.
Counsel Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Belanger.
Here.
Counsel Elliott.
Here.
Mayor Kennedy.
Here.
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Leary.
Here.
Counsel Mercier.
Here.
9 present.
Okay, the first order of business of the minutes of the City Council meeting of January 3rd, the Technology and Utilities Subcommittee meeting for acceptance for January 3rd.
Make a motion to approve.
To accept and place on file by Council Rourke, second by Council Samaras. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, on unfinished business, we have 2 motions by Council Elliott from last week. The first motion by Council Elliott is a request that the city manager contact the state regarding the installation of a roller barrier system for the intersection of Gorham Street and the Lowell Connector. Second by Council Belanger. Council Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I thank my colleagues for delaying this 1 week. The motion really speaks for itself, and I know that Mr. McGovern and you, Mr. Manager, already looked at the system. It was essentially something that came up on Facebook, actually, and I know some of my colleagues saw it, and I thought it was something that we should look into for the end of the Lowell connector, where there are consistent crashes and accidents, and this is a system that essentially, you know, you've seen it's a rolling system that essentially will protect the homeowners and hopefully fatalities and make it better, more visible. So it's just an idea. I don't, we certainly will have to look into the cost of it, but I just thought it was an idea to bring forward, knowing that, unfortunately, the way that the highway is designed, there's more likeliness that it'll occur again. So that's it. That's the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Not all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion under unfinished business is also by Council Elliott and Council Leahy. Request that the City Council vote to implement legal measures against the National Grid for delays associated with the bridge projects in the city. Motion doesn't need a second.
Well, again, the motion speaks for itself, but I guess I was frustrated, and Council Leahy and myself spoke about the neglect, if you will, with National Grid, Mr. Manager, and it was actually following the response on the inaction of the delay as a result of the delay in the construction of the bridge, the Broadway Street Bridge. And, learning that night from you, Mr. Manager, that it really wasn't the contractor. It was as a result of National Grid not moving the line. So I know we're all frustrated here with National Grid, but I don't know what legal actions we can take. But we have 13 or 12 more bridges to do, along with double poles. And, we don't want to stop progress for development that we have. But, what is there anything that we can do with regards to some of these delays that we can't do anything about, but continues to cause major traffic problems, not only for us, but for the university and people that live in that area and others. So, the motion, again, does speak for itself. I don't know what legal, if any, legal measures that we can take with National Grid to require them to be more responsive, particularly for something like this. And I know there was a similar situation, Mr. Manager, when there was construction on another bridge. So that's the motion. I don't know if you have anything. Council Leahy co-sponsored this together.
Leahy.
So.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. I just wanted to add the same thing, that, out of frustration, we put this motion on, and again, it causes a lot of headaches for the residents around there, the UML, fire, police, safety. So, when these things are, when they give us specific timelines and we're supposed to get these projects done, we have to hold people's feet to the fire. So if there's anything we can do to make them more accountable, we should do it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? So is it the intent of the makers of the motion to refer it to the city manager for a recommendation?
I think that makes some sense. I know that you do, and I know, Mr. Manager, you do work with representatives, different representatives on double polls, you and Mr. McGovern. So I would say that's, certainly the intent is to get a recommendation from the manager, if anything at all possible. I mean, we've tried to have a working relationship with them, but it just seems that we get some action and then it sort of dwindles to lip service. And, we don't want the city manager to be spending an incredible amount of time trying to chase National Grid. They should be doing their job, and I don't know if there's any statute that we can look at, Mr. Manager, but that, yes, Mr. Mayor, that would
Right,
be,
so if
make
there's no
sense.
objection, that would be the motion, is to refer to the city manager. Mr. Manager?
No, I think this is a great motion. I sense frustration not only with the Broadway Bridge, but they ruined Mickey Ward Circle, and we had to fix it and pay for it. Go down Chelmsford Street, there's double poles that they were supposed to move a long time ago. Drive down Stevens Street, they've got this big metal pole up there that isn't allowed in the city of Lowell, and it's just sitting there, and they won't take it down. So there are numerous frustrations that I endure every day, and we're looking at ways to do, not only if there's any statutes that we can enforce against them, but even our permitting process in the city of Lowell is to see if we can hold their feet to the fire, and that's what we're going to be doing in the future.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Not all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. Next, under communications from the city manager, we have A, B, and C. And A is to repair the stone wall at Crowley Field. Council Leary.
Thank you. Just quickly, thank you very much for the timely response. Thank you to the DPW as well, and glad to see that it'll be done internally as well. So I thank you for the prompt response.
Any further discussion on item A? If not, we'll move on to item B, which is the residential tax exemption. Councilor Elliott.
Mr. Mayor, no, just briefly, thank you for the explanation, information. It's helpful. I know that other communities, particularly the city of Boston, is looking to do that, but we certainly don't want to shift the burden any more than we have to. And this was just something that, I thought it was good to take a look at. And if we can, at some time in the future, become flush with money, then certainly providing some residential relief to homeowners certainly makes some sense. I know that we do the maximum shift, and that continues to help residential taxes stay low, but certainly don't want to make it any worse. So thank you for the report.
Thank you. Any further discussion on item B? Councilor Mercy.
I just wanted to know, do we have a large number of people that apply for this exemption? Do we know any numbers at all?
Mr. Manager.
We don't have the exemption currently, so we wouldn't have, they
So we
wouldn't be
don't.
part. But we're recommending that we don't adopt this exemption
Okay,
because
so it's not in place yet?
at this point in time,
Okay.
I mean, it may come to being in the future, but at this point in time, we think leaving it the way it is right now is the
Don't-
best way
don't
for the residential
have it.
taxpayer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to item C, motion response to solid waste and recycling holiday timeframes. Any discussion on item C? Hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to accept the communications from the city manager and place them on file. We have a motion to that effect by Councilor Rourke, seconded by Councilor Samaras. Discussion. All in favor, all opposed, so voted. Excuse me. Next on the votes from the city manager, we have a vote authorizing the city manager to execute a license agreement at 16 Merrimack Street for overhanging sign. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Motion approved by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Rourke. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next is a vote, roll call.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Samaras.
Yes.
Council Belanger.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Leary.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next is to apply, accept, and expend an amount of $152,000 for the Council on Aging. If there's no objection, we'll waive the full first reading, go to the second reading. Authorizing the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell to apply for, accept, and expend a grant from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs in the maximum amount of $152,000 for the continued employment of staff as well as funding of various supplies and equipment maintenance for use by the Council of Aging.
Move to
We have
approve.
motion approved by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Belanger. Discussion on the motion, roll call.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Next is a vote authorizing the city manager to execute a license agreement at 147 East Merrimack Street. There's no objection, we'll waive the full first reading, go to the second reading, authorizing the city manager to enter into a license agreement with Maria Vega Mason, doing business as Galleria de los Andres, to encroach upon the city of Lowell property at 147 East Merrimack Street in Lowell, Massachusetts. Do we have a motion approved by Council Rourke, seconded by Council Milonazo? Discussion on the motion, roll call.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, under subcommittee reports, we have a report from the Economic Development Subcommittee for January 10th, 2017. Council Samaras.
Thank you. Should pay attention. No, tonight, the city manager and his staff gave a great report. I was just trying to put so many notes together. I hope I do it justice. My suggestion would be to our constituents that are out there, that if they didn't watch the Subcommittee on Economic Development, listen to the city manager and his staff's presentation, they should do so, because I believe it's well worthwhile. It's put into perspective many aspects of the Hamilton Canal project. City manager started off not only talking about the Hamilton Canal project, but the area of discussion, which also included the connector, the Thorndike Street area, the bus parking lot that would be with the LRTA, and all the cooperation that has to go on to deal with the canal area. Talked about the National Park bus parking lot that will be shared with the LRTA and how it's going to take place. The connector ramp, which was important regarding Thorndike Street, it talks about developing 2 access lanes as you're leaving the city to reach the connector. And that's, according to Mr. Bostanato, will greatly improve traffic flow. They also talked about the widening of Thorndike Street and creating dedicated left-hand turns into the Gallagher Terminal, also turns onto Highland Street. These are issues and construction that will greatly affect the traffic in that area. They also talked about the South Common phase and the what's going to happen at the South Common. And what has happened is they're going to create a walking trail as they get ready to widen Thorndike Street and a new sidewalk. But they have $400,000 in park money, $400,000 in the Complete Streets grants, and $370,000 in matching funds. So they have the money to do quite the job there. Regarding the Lord Overpass, which is going to be some $15 million in expenditures, there's talk right now, do we rehabilitate the area or create a new design? And the city manager said he and his staff, I believe Mr. Manager, within the month will have that report ready. But the thing is, what they've done is they're taking their time to make sure that what they do is right. Because the issue that the city manager brought up was, at presently, if you miss the overpass, the roads and the Lord Overpass, you can go right by the Hamilton Canal area, make it very difficult for you to reach that area. But they talked about accessibility and good design, and this is very important. Then the city manager showed the map where he talked about where the Justice Center will be, Genesis, Watermark, Wind Development, all the projects that are out there, that have been laid out there for us to discuss. The Lowell Judicial Center, which is well on its way, the city manager stated today that he expects us in the summertime or spring to see steel actually coming from the ground. in this $255 million project. So the long-awaited judicial center is really on its way. This is very, very important. Also, you talked about Genesis. Now, it seemed that Genesis was really off the mark in a sense of they were not going to build develop the commercial space as originally stated, or their plans with the university had gone awry. But they've come back to the city manager and have talked about developing again a signature building, which will include commercial space and an exciting new program with the University of Lowell. So I want to commend the manager and his staff for not letting this go, but dealing with this in such a way that it's going to be a true possibility. Talked about Watermark. Watermark hasn't got its plans are for 2018, and one of the issues that the city manager brought up regarding Watermark is that in the area that Watermark have his building, there presently is no electricity, water, those types of things that are needed to have in the ground before you start building. And all of that is on target to be developed. As a matter of fact, for that area, that we're talking about, $7.2 million in infrastructure and the bridge and everything else. You also talked about the Swamp Locks pedestrian bridge, which was a motion by, with Councilor Mercier and Councilor and the mayor, about lighting and safety in that area. And some $600,000 will be expended in that area there. So it really was a great report, and the city manager talked about the parking garage. And we have an issue whether we're going to, in a timely fashion, get the land swap from the federal government. But the city manager pointed out very clearly that even if we don't get the land swap, the garage will be built. And there'll be some modifications made in the garage to assure that it'll be built in a timely fashion, because we do need that garage if we're gonna have the type of construction we want. He also talked about the temporary parking lot that has to be built. Some $300,000 will be expended in that regard to assure that the companies that are presently there have the parking that's necessary. And finally, he talked about the marketing study that's being supported by Wind Development with the Lisa Davis Association, working in conjunction with the wind companies. And they're anticipating completing that analysis for the spring of 2017. But this analysis will give us, as the manager stated, the plan came out in 2008. We are in now 2017. Changes have occurred. And the anticipation of this study will be to see if everything that was set to go in the original plan is doable, or should there be a new direction. But Councilor Milanazzo and Councilor Leary, and also being present was Councilor Rita Mercier there, all of us felt that this was a really complete study that I want to thank the manager again for giving us a road. And I did use the words that many of these projects are like a puzzle. And what the city manager did was he created a picture tonight. And I'm just pleased with this report. Thank you. Anything else that would be said, Mr. Leary?
Thank you, Councilor Leary.
Just quickly, first, Council Samir summed it up pretty nicely. What the manager also pointed out is that just looking at federal and state money to put this together is reaching approximately $300 million. So it's an extraordinarily sum of money, and just really basically not even a mile of real estate in terms of the distance. And it really, and I think the city manager put it well, is it's really, when you're looking at the Hamilton Canal, you really got to look at how you're going to get there and how you're going to get out of there. If I'm a business individual and I'm going to put money into a building, I want to make sure I have access on and off the connector and easy access into the different parts of the city. And so really redesigning Thorndike Street, widening Thorndike Street, the city manager articulated really getting two different ramps to have access onto the connector, making it, killing some of the bottlenecks or eliminating the bottlenecks One of the interesting points pointed out by Transportation, Nick, was regarding really reducing it by about a third, I think was the actual numbers, and that's extraordinary. I think next week when you have the subcommittee on transportation regarding the Lord overpass, I think that's going to be an interesting time because it's going to be a major challenge. Whether we fill it or not fill it or whatever we do, that's really going to be the core of how the development of Hamilton Canal is going to go forward. In addition, alleviating traffic issues into the downtown and really kind of into the Highlands, into the Acre, if you really think about it, and into South Lowell, really. So it's an extraordinary report. I thought it was very positive, very optimistic in some of the changes. I think, unfortunately, it's going to be a mess when you go through designing this and making it. It's going to be a lot of construction going on, but I think it's a positive thing. And to end it, I think the mayor's motion that we passed last week or a couple weeks ago regarding being proactive, or I like to use the words aggressive, really going out there and hunting for folks and showing them what this can be. I think that's the proactive approach, and that's the right approach that the council is taking, and I think the administration's taking. In addition, working with an analysis from Wynn, putting that all together, I think we'll have the best use for Hamilton Canal and hopefully bring in additional tax dollars and hopefully make it a very positive experience for the whole city of Lowell. So we've talked a lot of it. It's been worked on for decades, and I think now finally you're starting to see the shovels in the dirt and things starting to happen and a lot of money funding it. And that's not to say that an extraordinary amount of effort has gone on before with eminent domain and different actions by previous councils. It's been very powerful, and finally you're starting to see some of that in action. So it's very exciting, and I want to thank the city city administration for putting on this report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Leahy.
Thank you. I also wanted to echo the comments of my councils that I watched some of the meeting from your office. It was a good report, and what I wanted to add is I've been going down to that mill number 5 before Christmas, after Christmas, a little bit in the last few months, and I think that's just a small snapshot of what could really blossom over there. That place is busy all the time, and you've got the yoga studio, the movie studio, all the little unique shops. They always have entertainment there, so, that's gonna get tied into this whole district too. And we could even widen that out towards Middlesex Street. So I think, we should pay attention to that and see how that can grow over there too, because, they might be, that group or whatever, what's happening over there, those are gonna be the people that are gonna be coming into the city, probably buying some of these condos, or renting the apartments, and looking for more, more entertainment, more shops, more, whatever we do down there, supermarket, whatever. So I think that they have such a positive influence right now, it can only get better in that section, so. I just wanted to add that in, so I think that's gonna be a very important role to play here. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was very impressed and very happy and pleased that I came to this Economic Development Subcommittee meeting because there's so many phases, so many projects, so many things in the works. And I'm excited to know that the public is going to be in awe at seeing every good thing that's going to happen in this city. But we lose track of all the phases, all the money, and there's a ton of money, $300 million if you put, the state came through with quite a lot of that chunk of money. I'm very excited about all the things that are gonna happen. And I will say that whoever put this brochure together was completely unbelievable because this is what I asked for. We can come to the city council meeting and see it on TV or on the screen and get a slide presentation, but to actually have it in our hands, it's like a Bible. We can go by this and refer to this. And maybe 3 of my colleagues came to the city council meeting, but on their desk, everybody has what I have too. So I'm very pleased about that. So thank you very much for doing that. We're just so excited because we know that work is going on in the Hamilton, in the Judicial Center. We're so proud of that. people that thought it would never happen, it's happening. And you said, Mr. Manager, that by May, we'll actually see structural steel come out from the ground like the phoenix is rising. I'm just so excited about all that's going to take place. We're making this city better. And when I say we're voting, but people in the planning department are doing the thinking, the counting cars, getting things done for the traffic studies. And it takes study, it takes phases, it takes planning, and we get the best people in place. And I'm so very proud to be here to say this because they're wonderful, and this book shows it all. So I'm sorry if people didn't see the subcommittee, as was said. It is truly a good presentation, and I'm very proud of everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion? Mr. Manager?
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, the entire DPD staff has done a great job. You don't see them working on these projects behind the scenes. But as far as singling out one person for presentation of this document, and the presentation tonight is Joey Jinowitz is the individual responsible for putting the program together. And
Very good,
he
Joe.
deserves
Thank you, Joe. It was great.
Any further discussion on the report? We have a motion by Councilor Samaras to accept the report as a report of progress, seconded by Councilor Rourke. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, we move on to City Council motions. The first motion of the evening is a motion by Councilor Milonazo, request that the City Manager have the traffic engineer review and comment on the new striping along the Hunts Fall Bridge, seconded by Councilor Rourke. Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The other day when I was driving over the Hunts Falls Bridge, in the left lane, you can go straight and around the rotary, but the right lane, you have to go right. It says you have to go right on the marking. So, again, I was surprised by that. I think you should be able to go straight and/or right. So I just would like the traffic engineer to take a look at that. Thank you. Because a lot of people were going straight. They were in the right lane. They were just ignoring the marking, so, as was I.
As they should.
Right?
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. It's a good motion. I think once they did it, though, I think it really clears up the traffic over there, because before, everybody was just going to the right-hand lane and nobody was in the left. So it has shifted the traffic, and it's making it move pretty good now. So with that said, I just wanted to add one other thing, Mr. Manager. Last night at Pawtuckaville Neighborhood Subcommittee, and we hear it at the other subcommittees, we want to pay attention to the paint, to the striping in the streets this budget season. So that came up again last night, and it comes up at other meetings. So since we're talking about lines on the street, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion in the evening is a motion by Councilor Belanger. Request that the City Manager update the City Council regarding the UTEC mattress recycling facility relocating to Lowell. Second by Council Leary. Council Belanger.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week, I toured the UTEC facility with Executive Director Greg Croto. And just for those at home to inform everyone that UTEC stands for the United Teen Equality Center, which is located on Hurd Street. It's a brand-new facility that they've been there about 4 or 5 years now, and it services inner-city youth and many leadership skills, mentor skills, teaches them valuable trades and leadership, and they're often troubled teens that were incarcerated or other situations that they have a lot of adversity they are facing. And this is such a tremendous retreat for our inner city kids, and we need to do everything we can to help out this organization. And how far they've come over the years. They currently are into 3 manufacturing ventures. They have a culinary arts program where they have purchased the adjacent building right next door to them, where they have installed a state-of-the-art $1 million kitchen, which they will be renting out to caterers and also teaching kids the valuable skill of culinary arts and help relocate them into the workplace and right here in the local community. It's a tremendous facility, and it's very, very good for those kids who are attending UTEC. They also have a woodworking facility that teach right here in the city that teach the kids valuable woodworking skills, which is, as we all know, a valuable trade as they go on in the building industry. and they've engaged some pretty good, valuable contracts out there. They have a contract with Whole Foods. I'm sure we're all familiar with them. And if you're to buy a cutting board at Whole Foods, you'll see a label that is made by UTEC right here in Lowell. And I think we all should be very, very proud of that, and proud of these kids for what they've accomplished. That this organization's come a long way. And thirdly, they have a mattress recycling facility that is currently in Lawrence. Now, I don't know too many cities and towns that offer free mattress recycling, but thanks to UTEC, it's a service that we can offer the residents of Lowell. And they are up against it out there in Lawrence. They have a few other issues where they need to, they're going to have to vacate there in due time, within 6 months to a year. And we need to do all we can to get that facility in Lowell. I think it's very, very important. There are many positives. It's up to Court Executive Director Greg Cotto. It's 75 jobs for our youth. That's huge, absolutely huge. And they're decent paying wages, too. It's a nice service for our residents here in the city. So I'm going to keep attuned to this whole process to see where we are, how we're coming along. Because I think it's extremely important that we help UTEC land this facility right here in the city of Lowell. So they have made contact, and they said DPD's been outstanding, and the manager's office has been working. But I'd like to just continue that progress and let my colleagues go back and forth on the discussion, and I'm sure they realize, too, what a valuable, precious commodity that would be to have intact here in the city. So I want to keep it here. It needs to stay here at all costs. So I tasked Mr. Manager through you. I have all the confidence in you to work with UTEC and help land that facility right here in the city. There's more than one benefit to that. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion? All opposed? So voted. The next motion of the evening is a motion by Council Belanger requesting the city manager provide the city council with an outline establishing a citywide youth council. Seconded by Council Leary. Council Belanger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This stems from the National League of Cities Summit, which myself and Mayor Kennedy attended back in November, where, you know, you're speaking with many elected officials all around the country. It was a tremendous experience. And many of them, cities, both large and small, had youth councils. And I know things like this have come and gone in the city, but I think there needs something to be a little more permanent to engage the kids. There are issues and challenges here in the city that they face not only in the city, but all over the Commonwealth and the country. And we need to keep them engaged, and we need to keep them occupied. So I think it'd be a plus to reinvent this on a permanent measure to get our kids engaged right here in the city, Mr. Mayor. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. The next motion of the evening is a motion co-sponsored by Council Belanger and Council Leahy, requested the city manager have Skanska provide a report outlining the rejection of the South Common as a viable location for the new high school. And we had a registered speaker, but I don't see the speaker in attendance, so who wants to go? Council Belanger.
Go first. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I know there's a lot of information that's forthcoming. I understand that. But it was just curious to me, and I was approached, and Council Leahy and I had a conversation on it as to the South Common location. I mean, this stems, from my opinion, on a couple big concerns. One being the current location, that the potential disruption to the kids there, if it stays. There are ways around it, but that is going to be difficult, and that is a big, big concern. If kids are in modular classrooms for 4, 5, or 6 years, very, very concerning to me. And secondly, knowing what we know now, that up to 1,000 of the approximate 3,000 students walk to Lowell High School where it sits now, and how valuable it is to keep it centrally located here in the city, when you have, again, about a third of the school population that walk. And South Common would be still a walkable location for these kids who continue to walk to Kirk Street and whatnot. So, look, I understand its challenges, believe me, but I just like to know why this was rejected as not a viable location, because I think it has some green space to offer, not quite the complex that you could have in other locations. But I think there are some benefits to that, but it's difficult. I don't pretend that it's easy, but I'd just like to know an explanation as to why it was rejected. It was rejected, and I don't know why, or there was no explanation, but I would just like to know why. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council Leahy, the registered speaker is here. Do you want to go first, or do you want the? Okay.
Steve Gendron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I saw the agenda that this was way down the end, but I know Mayor Kennedy likes to run a tight ship, so you guys moved along very quickly. Thank you for allowing me to speak before you tonight. As you know, I'm the lone school committee representative on the Lowell High School School Building Committee, and as you probably also know, I at the last meeting requested that the School Building Committee reconsider putting the South Common location on the list of sites that they will be analyzing. And I thought I would, since I saw this motion on tonight, I thought I would come down and kind of give you my perspective on it. First, I want to say that I've been on record, as has been the entire school committee, saying that the downtown location is our preference for a number of reasons. We think, and I'll speak for myself, I think the downtown location is probably the best location for the school. However, I think it's important that we have all of our options on the table, and we can carefully consider all of our options. And that's exactly what the School Building Committee has been doing for the last few months with the help of our consultants, Skanska and Perkins Eastman, who, by the way, I think are doing a great job. I think we've made good choices in bringing those folks on board, and they've been helping us analyze those options. I brought along a chart here that Skanska provided. You've probably all seen it, but if it's okay, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to give it out to the members. Thanks. Oh, read it. So if you take a look at this chart, along the left side, you'll see the options that were considered by the School Building Committee. It's okay. One for the mayor. And along the top, you'll see the various criteria. Now, this is just a summary. Each of these items was discussed in great detail. But it's a pretty good picture, pretty good summary of how the analysis was done. And after doing this analysis, you'll see there's 7 options that were considered here. The bottom 3 options fell off pretty quick for a number of reasons that I won't go into here. And the top 3 options, those being the existing high school location, the Colley Stadium site, and the Wang Middle School site, LeBlanc Park, rose to the top, mainly because there's enough space there and the city owned all the space. The South Common was on the bubble. Admittedly was on the bubble. And initially, the School Building Committee decided to eliminate it, and the primary reason was that it's not owned by the city. The property's owned by the state, and it's protected under Article 97, which is protection of green space. So that not having ownership of that land obviously is a detriment. However, there can be a waiver given by the state legislature to allow the city to use that land. In fact, we have a precedent for that in the city where we built the Merkland School on the North Common. That waiver is not easy to get, and it can take a lot of time. So being concerned about time and knowing that we have to move this along, the School Building Committee initially decided to eliminate that option. However, at the last meeting, I went back and I asked the committee to reconsider for a couple of reasons. After some thought, I thought about the Colley Stadium and the Wang School options, the alternatives that we have to the downtown. And I think they have a couple of serious detriments, or serious drawbacks. One is that their location, right? They're both on the outskirts of town, which means they don't have good access to city services, they don't have access to the school department, and they don't have access to the students. We're going to have to bus kids all over the city if we choose one of those locations. And not only is that an inconvenience for the city, meaning we have more buses and traffic on the city streets, but it also means we have to pay to bus those students. And the cost of that has been estimated at over $1 million a year, every year. So that's a recurring cost that the school department and ultimately the city will have to incur. So that's a real those are real serious concerns. The other one is that both of these locations are either in or bordering suburban single-family districts. Now, I don't have to tell you that we want to try to protect those suburban single-family districts. I was on the planning board for 8 years, but you don't have to be a planning expert to know that those districts provide comfortable places for people to live, and you want to make sure that people want to still live there. If we make it uncomfortable, people will leave, ultimately affects our tax base, and the whole thing can come crashing down. So dropping the second largest high school in Massachusetts in a suburban single-family zone in Lowell could be a problem, right? It could cause some problems for us and ultimately be a detriment to the city. So those things weighed on me. And when I thought again about the South Common site, from a location perspective, as Councilor Belanger was just saying, it is central, right? It's less than a mile from the current site, closer to city services, closer to the school department, right off the Lowell connector. And it is directly across from the LRTA terminal. So I'm sure we could work out a situation where we can continue using the LRTA for busing, thus avoiding that cost of busing kids all over town. One of the knocks on it is that the site was too small, but it is decidedly not too small if we can get the waiver. It's 20 acres if there's a waiver given for that site, which is more than 3 times larger than the current site. So I thought that this was something that was worth considering, and what I asked the school building committee was not to drop the downtown efforts for the downtown location, not to drop considering Colley or Wang, but instead but in addition, put the South Common back on the docket, allow our architects to go out and build a preliminary schematic for the site, as they are planning to do for the other locations, so that we can see how well it fits, if it flows, and simultaneously reach out to our state delegation and ask them if they can look into this waiver. Is it something that's possible that could be done in short order? If it's going to take us years to get the waiver, it's not worth it, because time is money in this project. As you all know, the longer we delay this project, the more costs go up and the more difficult it could be. That's it. That's my perspective. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gendron. And thank you for taking the time to come down and speak on the issue that I know you feel strongly about. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Councilor Leahy's a sponsor of the
Excuse me,
motion.
just for 1 minute, thank you. I just wanted to echo those thoughts. So when this came up, when we talked about putting the motion on, I hadn't paid attention to the meeting that Mr. Genron referred to, so that had no influence on us at all. But basically, what we're trying to consider is, this is obviously one of the biggest projects that we're ever going to vote on. And I just want to make sure that we do homework on it. And, the location is great. It's centrally located. It's a startup, so we're not disrupting anything at the present site right now. There would be no disruption in education. But then again, you have to weigh the factors of what we're going to get reimbursed for and what we're not going to get reimbursed for. So that plays a factor too. So, this motion is just on there, just saying, are we taking a look at all of our options? When I saw the Wang site, I was a little puzzled by that, because I thought the extra traffic that's going to be up there, the roads are narrow going to the site. You've got the hospital up there. We don't want to interfere with people trying to get to the hospital for emergencies. So that's all we're looking for, is just to make sure that we're making the best choices that we can. So when it comes time to make a decision, we're going to spend our money wisely. So that's why I put the motion on with Council Belanger. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Leahy. Councilor Mercia, then Councilor Milonazo, then right down the line.
Thank you,
Councilor
Mr.
Mercia.
Mayor. Thank you. First off, I want to thank School Committee Man Steve Genron for taking the time to come down here. He's adding another perspective to this scenario, but I have some thoughts myself. When we talk about bordering suburban single-family districts and putting people in an inconvenience and a disadvantage. I can understand that. But I don't know what neighborhood in this city has not experienced some discomfort. When you talk about the Highlands, you talk about the landfill and all the things that went around with the landfill, that caused a lot of discomfort and anxiety and everything else. When you talk about Centerville and you sometimes get that drift of the wastewater treatment plant, that is another inconvenience that people have to live with. When you talk about Pawtucketville, you talk about UMass Lowell, and although it creates some goodness, think about the people that live on Sarah Avenue that were inundated with students having parties. So no matter where you put anything in this city that is of value, it's still going to create some discomfort. Having said that, if I lived on Clark Road or Douglas Road, I would not want that to be the main transportation route, the main access road to the school. That is not acceptable to me. So I would say that that if we could devise some plan whereby they could restructure it and say, come in off Route 38 to Village Street, or Village Street, then that would be probably more amenable, and we probably wouldn't even be thinking about the South Common. Think about how it's going to inconvenience Salapoli. What is he going to think putting all that money in there and all this is going to take place, the added traffic of buses and things? I'm not supporting this per se. I didn't have my mind made up. I really liked it downtown, but I'm amenable. I really want, Mr. Manager, see this plan that Steve just gave us? I want to see something like this. I want to see the pros and cons of each designated site. For example, if we renovate the Lowell High School, what would the cost of and plan of modular classrooms be? That would be at a disadvantage, where if it was at Colley Stadium, you wouldn't probably need that. I'm not saying that that's what I want, but I'm saying I would like to see pros and cons. I'm not in favor of the South Common because, as Steve said, it is state-owned land, and we don't have enough there unless the state can drag their feet. Let's not be naive to think that they're going to jump to it, and I'm not going to delay this project any further. I do have people that say, scrap the plans, we don't want a high school. I would not say that. Personally, as a representative sitting here, we may never get the opportunity again to have the ratio where the state is willing to pay. So I am certainly demanding that we're going to do something. We're not going to do nothing. We're going to do something. I also want to say that as of this evening, we had the Economic Development Subcommittee do a wonderful presentation, and part of the presentation was a South Common Phase 1, the anticipated date of construction, April 2017. A lot of work went into this economic development plan for the South Common, and to me, it makes sense. Walkability from the train station through the South Common. Are there derelicts sleeping there? You bet your life there are. I see them myself. I don't like it, but we got to clean it up. We don't just have to. They'll only move somewhere else, so you got to face the problem. You don't just kick it down the road. You face the problem right there. $400,000 from PAR's from Park grant. Complete streets, $400,000, and the city will put in some money to make that corridor and the South Common a beautiful area, a nice phase. So to disrupt it with a high school, to me, is not the best place. So these are the things that I just want to say. I don't know whoever thought going up Clark Road or Douglas Road was the main entrance into if a new high school was there. That is absurd. If I lived on any one of those streets, I wouldn't want it either. But to say come in on 38, Village Road, Village Street, or whatever, that would be the best alternative for me. But anyway, there's so many things that I just wanted to say, but I can't think of them all right now, but it kind of made my case that I'm not interested in the South Common. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me begin by saying that I'm going to ask the clerk for a roll call vote on this because I can't support this either. I really feel like, with all due respect to my colleagues and to School Committeeman Gendron, that this is feels like an end run around the Building Committee. We all got this report last week from the Building Committee, and the South Common is not on there. And at the meeting, there was an effort, again, with all due respect to Committeeman Gendron, to bring it back, and it was voted down. And now we're being asked to, again, just ask the city manager to get a report as to why it wasn't, listed, as on the short list. But the committee knows why it wasn't listed. And if we want to find out, we can go to the committee. And again, I'm not looking to, again, number one, support the motion, but also look seriously at South Common. I mean, it's a homestead park. We voted to spend money on that open space. And I just think that trying to, again, squeeze the school onto that site is not something that the building committee is recommending. So it's not something that I could, I could support. So I would like a roll call vote because I can't support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All due respect to my colleagues as well, I cannot support this motion. And looking at the sheet that was emailed to us and that was given us again tonight, I mean, I think the major problem with the South Common, and I'm surprised that it made it as far as it did as far as the MSBA goes, is because there's 2.3 acres of usable land there, which is beyond how you build a building there. Secondly, as was stated before, there are Article 97 issues that the state would have to get involved in. And if you delay the project any time at all, the costs of products go up, and you risk losing the MSBA funding. And then, something the council had done just over a month ago, unanimously, we approved a motion to light up the park, the possibility of putting a new field in that area too, to be used for longer hours during the day and so forth. So I hate to take a step back, not only on the school project, but also on ideas that were passed by this council just a short period ago. And if I could just ask the manager, maybe for with some of the comments that I've heard that have been made recently concerning, bus costs and walkers. Mr. Manager, are you aware of any report that's ever been done on the amount of walkers that go to the high school?
No, I've heard estimates of what it is. I haven't seen any, empirical evidence, but I do know that the head of school has told me it's somewhere around 1,000 students.
Yeah, so if you could get that report from the head of schools that was done on the number of walkers that come to the high school, and also, and I hear that the bus costs as well. If a kid from the Highlands or a kid from Belvedere or Pawtuckaville, if they can't get a ride or if they can't walk, what's the bus cost to get them to Lowell High? Do you know that answer, Mr. Manager?
I don't know the cost, but I'll get that as part of the report also.
Right. I thought I heard Mr. Scanlon speak of this at a subcommittee meeting that it's a zero cost. The kid from Belvedere, Highlands, and Pawtuckaville, if he needs to take the bus to Lowell High, it costs nothing. So, these aggregate numbers of estimates of busing students, I'm not sure that they exist. So, with regards to the motion, again, I appreciate the idea of it, but I think we're far enough down the line. We have committees in place to deal with this. So I'm looking forward to the financial numbers, Mr. Manager, that come out pretty soon, and to go from there. So thank you.
Council Samaras.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too can't support this motion. Actually, what I do appreciate the idea that we're having discussions like this because it's important if the people don't understand what issues we face, that we look into each and every parcel correctly. But I have several issues in this regard. One, it's a green space. It's a historic green space. It's owned by the state. But really, back central, all that area there, it's the only green space that they do have. And there are issues out here. I just do not see the state turning this land over in any quick fashion. And I have some history and some knowledge, which I'll just state at this particular point. One, the Merkland School is built there. It was allowed to go in the North Common because it's on the footprint of the Morrill School, something that was already there. The state allowed that, but nothing else. The Rogers School abuts Highland Ave. When I think Mr. Sapasaris wanted to expand and put another school on the South Common, he was told just add to the Rogers School, but they could not, the state would not allow him to use the South Common at that time. The drainage in the South Common is poor. I mean, even articles in the Lowell Sun have been out there where the snow that was piled up in the winter at the South Common, that was the last place in the city that melted. But the issue is that in the past, the city of Lowell or the school department has attempted to build other buildings at the North Common and the South Common. The only reason the North Common was allowed Morrill School footprint and the Rogers School abutting Highland Ave. No other place was there allowed. So, Mr. Manager, I don't know what's changed, what's different that would allow the state would turn around and say, you can now use that space. So that's my concern, because knowing that type of information, that would say to me that this plan would be years in discussion if there was any possibility of opening up the South Common, and that would kill the high school issue. And just for, Councilor Mercia brought up a good point about the Colley Stadium, but before the meeting was over, there was a discussion that Clark Road and Douglas Road were not the right way to put buses in the area. And if there was a change, the change would be in Village Road to put the buses on Route 38. So we have a lot to discuss, but at this point, Mr. Manager, I mean, I brought up some points. Are they valid today, or like I said, I just don't see any changes that have come before us that would say the state's going to turn this land over. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Leary.
Just quickly, the motion itself asks for the reason why it was rejected, so I'm going to support the motion. And I think Councilor Samaras just actually added something to it that I think is equally as important as this one location. Really getting the minutes of that meeting for the council to review why all the locations were either accepted or not. I think that's important. I think what Councilor Samaras just presented regarding how to get in and out of Colley as one site is a perfect example of something that's changed and perhaps most folks don't understand. Regarding the South Common specifically, I guess the question I had for you, City Manager, and through you to Mr. McGovern, the $1.2 million that we are investing now into changing and upgrading that park is not the only funds. If I'm correct, there's opportunity for additional funds to upgrade that park, or is that something that I'm misinterpreting?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. The grand scheme of the plan for the South Common is approximately $7 million. So DPD in the future will continue to apply for park grants and other monies to improve that area.
Okay. So was just the meeting we had on the Economic Development Subcommittee regarding the infrastructure changes we're going to make. About, 1,000 to 1,200 people that are going to go into the Judicial Center each and every day. The Lapoli review of that building in terms of restaurants and additional residents going in there. South Common being something that we just spoke about 2 or 3 weeks ago regarding investment. I wouldn't support putting a high school at South Common. There's probably additional reasons that have already been presented. But I think the important thing is the councilor asked for information. And I don't think, I've been on the school committee for 10 years, I've been here a year, I've never not voted for additional information, unless it's something that's unusual or would delay the project. I don't think getting it doesn't say in the motion, we want the South Common added to the list. I know my good friend and committee member, Gendron, did ask for that, but that's not the motion. The motion's just asking, why was this rejected? I mean, I almost would think as an amendment to it, or at least you could switch it as, why were the other ones rejected as well? I think this presentation in the chart kind of explains that, but outlining all those different things. I don't know if every counselor knew, or maybe they know anecdotally or a little bit, that we have a potentially $8 million going into the South Common. That's an extraordinary sum of money, not to mention the $300 million just going in right by it. A lot of money going in that area, and that's really the only green space in that area. And you're going to be bringing in, we know already, 1,000 to 1,200 people just for the court system. Never mind what we hope to achieve with all the additional buildings going forward, and then what Salapoli's project will bring in. So again, I would never support, never is too strong a word, I will not support a building on South Common. I understand why, but a counselor did ask for specific information, and if we could get that within, a week or so, it doesn't delay anybody's time frame. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Council Belanger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, those were some very interesting comments from my colleagues, and I certainly want to thank School Committee member Steve Gendron, who had much more pertinent information by being on the School Building Committee. And thank you, Steve, for coming down and sharing that with us. But, in no means was Council Leahy and I throwing down a gauntlet and saying, it has to go here, okay? I think we share the same logic when we just say that we're going to be spending the most money in the city of Lowell's history, and we just simply want everything looked at. That's all, okay? I know there's no egos. We just want what's best for the kids and what's best for the city in the most viable location. That's all I'm looking for, okay? Now, I know we just weeks ago we made improvements to South Common. It's talked about frequently in this council. I am not talking about encroaching on an entire green space on a building the entire. That's not what I have in mind. Now, the Rogers School where it sits is actually a larger footprint than people imagine. It's one story. It goes from the tennis courts to the other side of the street. It actually it has a larger footprint than people imagine if you were to get out and walk the parcel. It really does. It's surprising, okay? And the idea, part of my thinking is that there is hopefully a new turf there with better lighting to offer sports complex in some capacity for the kids. It's sure better than what's around them downtown, which is nothing but pavement, okay? So I'm not talking about removing any kind of field or I certainly want to continue the improvements that we've worked so hard on in previous years to happen there, okay? Now, if tasked with it, there's no appetite for it. My councilors have spoken, and I respect that 100%. But if we would all agree, hypothetically speaking, and we were to task our state legislators that, look, this is something that we need, could you expedite it? I'm willing to bet they would partner up in a heartbeat and get this done probably in small order. I could be wrong, okay? Is it a lengthy, difficult process? Most certainly. But we've got a tremendous delegation, and when the city of calls upon them, they usually get things done. Okay, so I have confidence in them. That the process could be expedited. But again, there's no appetite. I get it. But, that's all I was looking for, just so that we're looking at everything, and I just wanted an answer, an explanation. That's all. There was no line in the sand as to this is where it needs to go. So I just thought it should be looked at with the central location and the other things that do go for it. There are things that do not fare well for that location, but there are things that do fare well for the kids in particular. So that's all. I was just looking for some answers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
So I think there's been a very good discussion tonight on the issue, and thank School Committeeman Gendron for coming down, as well as my colleagues. This is going to be an ongoing discussion for many more months to come. And I personally think it's a well-intentioned motion to get more information, but I think as Council Milonazo mentioned, we know what the answer is. The answer is that the city doesn't own it. We'd have to go to the legislature. It is an Olmsted Park, and I think that in itself are significant reasons not, to not look at this. We paid these consultants, Mr. Managers, at 1.8 million for this feasibility study?
$2 million between the two of them.
So we're paying consultants $2 million to come up with recommendations to go through the process, and I do think they're doing a good job. They're keeping both this body and as well as this, the building committee, which I've not made the meetings because they're in the morning, but you do a good job, Mr. Manager, in giving us all the information, or Mr. McGovern, and I think we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit too much. They're consultants. They're doing a job from an independent perspective to bring forward the preferred options. I think we have to remember, yes, we can reject what their recommendations, but they're going to come to us with a recommendation on what a preferred option is, what they're going to pay for, what is eligible and what is not eligible. To me, the bottom line is, what can this city afford? what is reasonable in addition to all of the other projects, and how do we keep the city operating? And I think that's important. So if they're saying this is not a viable alternative, we all know there's a very strict time frame, and well, you know, I don't think any one of us wants to jeopardize this process, knowing that it, in large part, I think it has been going smoothly. There are some options. It's not going to please everybody all the way around. If, you know, I know there's some folks that want a brand new high school. That will require a piece of land. And then others think that we should rehab the existing. Some don't want it downtown. So I think there's a lot of opinions. But at the end of the day, the school building authority are going to present an option, and that will be brought forward. And I think we need to find out what the costs are associated with all of this before we put the, you know, the horse before the cart. So if we know what the answer is, and we know that it's to me, it's somewhat of a risky proposition to put, you know, this project in the hands of the legislature, if you will, knowing that it may or it may not pass. I don't think that's a direction that we should head into. We know what the options are, and we have to get down to cost. So I think it's well intentioned, but I think this kind of throws a wrench into the process to some degree. At this point in the juncture. One question, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. So the next step is the educational component, which that information is being given to the consultants. Then at that point, within the next month or two, that's when we will start getting some options and costs associated with these recommendations.
Yeah, the educational plan is being finalized by the consultants, and it will be presented to the school committee for their approval, because it's the school committee that has to approve the educational plan. We sent you the concepts last week by email as to what the different concepts from the consultant, but the key component missing in those concepts was the price tag. But I anticipate that I will be making a presentation to this city council at the beginning of February that takes these concepts but puts the price tag on them. And that will start the real conversation as to what's the best location for the new high school. So the beginning of February, and I'm talking about February 3rd to February 7th, we'll be making a presentation to this city council with the price tag for the different options that we presented to you last week.
Okay. Thank you. I think that provides more direction for this body and the other body, the school committee, to find out the direction. Where are we going? I mean, we can talk about all kinds of scenarios, but we have to ensure that it's affordable, that it's practical, that it's reasonable, and it's still, look, to me, you want a nice facility for kids, but what takes place inside those classrooms is the most important. You don't always need a Taj Mahal. You need a good, and don't get me wrong, I think that high school needs, you know, it's well past the time of, you know, needing improvement. So I'll stop here. I think we're gonna, there's a lot more to come on this, and, you know, I just think we need to continue to move forward with the processes in place, and that's what I plan to do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? If not, I'd just like to add two things. I mean, first of all, if I can count correctly, I don't think it really matters how I weigh in on this, but nevertheless, I intend to support the motion. I think that I imagine that the makers of the motion filed the motion at the request of Mr. General from the school committee, but probably that they've been approached by other people that want a better explanation of why the South Common isn't a good site. I know that I've had several people approach me and wonder about the South Common as well. And I think that there are very good reasons, but I don't see any reason why that information shouldn't be provided to the city council as to exactly why the South Common isn't a good site. And I think that the city manager has that information readily available. So I think the motion's easy enough. I would expect the city manager will be able to churn out a report like that probably in 1 week. And it doesn't hurt to get additional information to see why. The second thing that I would just like to suggest while we're talking about the high school is that the facilities subcommittee of the council might consider hosting a tour of the existing high school so that everybody can see just exactly why we need a new high school, and just how bad the high school is. And maybe after that tour is done, if a majority of the city council thinks it makes sense, maybe we should do a tour of Lawrence High School, which is a new high school, in order that we can get a comparison in our heads as to what our high school looks like and what a new high school would look like. It makes sense to me. I think before anybody's going to make a reasonable and thoughtful vote on this, they should take a good look at the high school facility as it is now and take a look at the issues that exist with that facility in order that they can make a pretty measured decision. So that would just be a suggestion that I would make. I think the chairman of the facility subcommittee is Council Leahy, so hopefully he would take that recommendation under advisement. Council Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree with those sentiments. Due to the manager, Mr. Manager, it seems like, the answers to this motion are well known. If you want to give a verbal report right now on it, I could support something like that. But as far as going forward with a written motion and then something to come back with, an idea of putting the high school there or an opportunity to put it there, I would not support. But, it does seem like the answers to the motion have been stated multiple times already this evening. But if, for the makers of the motions, satisfactory, if you want to just, say a couple of reasons right now, I'd be fine with that.
Council Belanger.
No, I'm not open to that, Mr. Mayor. To my colleagues, vote your conscience. I'm sticking to my guns. If you don't like it, then I'd like a report. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Council.
I agree with your sentiments, Mayor. I think it's important. I think it's also important to look at, Greater Lowell Technical School was actually voted on by the council a few years ago to upgrade, and the science labs at Greater Lowell Tech are far superior to what we have right here at Lowell High School. And that was a vote that the council passed because it was a wise decision to upgrade the technology to align with the economic needs of what's going to happen for these students. So, again, voting for this motion, I get it. It's at the end of the day, these three locations, the high school, Colley, and Wang, are the three that we're going forward. We're going to be getting a discussion on in February for pricing. Voting for this is just for a written synopsis, basically, of what we've received tonight, and we'll probably get it in the packet Tuesday. But I appreciate my colleagues' thoughts on it. It was very informative in terms of what people's thoughts are. I think we have a lot more work to do, as Councilor Elliott presented, in terms of the price and some other additional questions. So it's actually a very exciting time in the city of Lowell at this point. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counsel Milonazo.
No.
Counsel Rourke.
No.
Counsel Samaras. No. Counsel Belanger.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
No.
Mayor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Leary.
Yes.
Excuse me, I'm here.
Counsel Mercia.
No.
5 nays.
The motion fails. The next motion is a motion by Council Leahy. Request that the city...
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Did we get a second on his motion when he made it, when Councilor Milonazo made it? Did he get a second?
I think it was a request for a roll call.
Oh, he requested it? You don't need a second for a request? Oh, because I would have.
Anybody
seconded.
can request a roll call anytime
Okay.
on any vote. Council Leahy, request the city council refer the snow emergency ordinance to the neighborhood subcommittee for review. Seconded by Council Rourke. Council Leahy.
Thank you. I'm not sure if that's the appropriate subcommittee, but I thought it was a good subcommittee to send it to. So basically, I think the snow emergency ordinance should be up for discussion, improvement by the council. So not to say that it's, it's a tough thing to deal with the weather, and there's human factor in there. So, but I think it's due for discussion. So that's what basically what the motion's about.
Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a good motion. I think it's somewhat of a timely motion, even though we've had a couple of storms, just to remind, and I think it's important to get the information out to the people, particularly when there is a snow ban or no parking ban in effect. And I mean, Mr. Manager, I'm sure you're in the city, you drive around, and I'm not sure if the word got out or people just ignored it, but there seemed to be lots of cars in the streets that are plowed in now, and they make the roads very, not, you know, you can't travel on these roads now, and it's freezing, and it becomes ice. And I'm not sure people understand that it's not so much, it's about getting cars off the road so we can get the snow off the street. And we did get a report from you, Mr. Manager, I appreciate that, on the number of tickets that were issued and warnings, and maybe that's a good approach. And luckily, we're gonna have some warm weather, but if we were, you know, stuck in this spell, the roads, a lot of these side roads are a mess, and it's because people did not move their cars off the street. So I think it's a timely motion, and people have been given a warning, and I understand when there's the snow, people can park in the garages for free. And we accommodate as much as we can, but we have to get the snow off the road, so after the snowstorm starts, people can go back to parking, and it's not, you know, it's not a mess and dangerous. So I think it's a good idea to get this out there, and next time, people should be aware there's going to be a lot more tows, and we don't want to tow people. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In conjunction with this issue, I did get a call from a family, well, not a family, a woman that lives in the Lower Highlands, and when the snow parking emergency ban took place, she would have had to go all the way down to the Ayotte garage or the Roy garage. Was it just those two garages? What's the third?
You had the Ayotte garage, you had the John Street garage, and you had the Lower Locks
Right,
garage.
so if you lived in the Lower Highlands and you didn't have much of an income to begin with, and you brought your car down there, and you needed to take a cab back home because you couldn't walk, you know, I don't know what the plan is, and I know you can't let them all open, but you gotta think of people within the corridor of the Lower Highlands, and you know not everybody has a driveway there, and yet she called to me, and it made sense to me. You know, you got to think of the people that aren't the wealthiest, that don't have a driveway, that have to get their car off the street for fear of it being towed, and yet we're asking them to go down to the Roy garage. I wish at least if it were to the early garage, it won't happen. That's pretty tough for them. There's no close place available for them, and then they have to take a cab back home and then a cab back down to get their car. It's, see, if you're a family, two people could, you know, two people can drive the car or the truck down there and take a ride back into the driveway, but if you don't have a driveway and and your husband is deceased, it's hard for people.
Councilman Linazzo, then the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On a related matter, not that I think we need to amend the motion, but are we ticketing people for not shoveling sidewalks? Because a lot of sidewalks have not been shoveled, especially on Andover Street. So again, I think that's something we really need to make sure we're on top of.
Mr. Manager.
I think it's a great motion. I think the most telling statistic this last weekend, there was not one car towed in the city of Lowell, even though we had a parking ban. I drive around the city because I live in the city. I see cars. I saw 3 cars plowed in on Pine Street. That's narrow enough, and they're just sitting there. As far as shoveling the sidewalks, I'll get those statistics. But as far as for the Highland, we also plow out the surface parking lot on 110 Canal Place, which would be a place that the people from the Lower Highlands could park in. It will make that more, we'll publicize that more for the general public.
That would be even better.
Well, no, I think parking inside in the snow may be better. That's why we like them in the garage.
Just
but
to
at
get
least-
it off the street.
Yeah, but they can also go to that surface parking lot, and we'll publicize that even more
Okay, that's
for an
fine.
individual
Thank you.
like
That makes sense. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real briefly, how do we get the message out? In the past, there was the reverse call system, and that's, unless you sign up for it, you don't get notified any longer. Is that correct? Because I thought that was very effective, and I'm thinking maybe that's contributing to the fact that lots of cars are on the street, virtually all of them. I mean, if you don't listen to the radio or read the newspaper, how do you get the message? I mean,
Mr. Manager.
and you're a renter.
Well, we have an extensive social media outlet. The police department has a great social
Okay.
media that we use. The new website has a special section now, I believe is it in red, that
You send alerts out?
in Civic Ready gets the word out. So we do publicize it as much as we can. But for some reason or another, like I say, if you don't enforce the ban,
Yeah.
people are going to just ignore it. And that's what happened
I agree.
this time.
I just feel bad for the people that just, for whatever reason, they don't get the notice and their car is gone. I mean, I don't know, it's not easy, and we are trying every possible vehicle that we have, social media, to get that word out. Okay, is there a Twitter account? Does he have a Twitter? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, we have Twitter. I don't use it, but the staff use it to try and get the message out. And we use Facebook also to do it. Yep. See, I know the names, I just don't use it.
Just can't use them.
Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. That concludes the agenda. We have announcements. Councilman Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This Thursday, January 12th at 7 p.m., the Citywide Neighborhood Council will be meeting to discuss the 15 proposed changes to the zoning ordinance. It's not a zoning subcommittee meeting, so it's not a publicly posted meeting, but myself, Eric Slagle, and I think Council Belanger, and who's the third member of the Council Rourke, will be there on Thursday. Again, we're not going to take any official action. It's just, and I appreciate City Manager Murphy asking Eric Slagle to be at the meeting, and he's already prepared the paperwork that we're going to be going over that night. So it's this Thursday, Dompolsky Club at 7 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. Any further announcements? If not, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion to adjourn by Council Rourke, seconded by Council Milonazo. All in favor, all opposed? Stand adjourned.